Good afternoon. My name is Mike Mulvaney, Cropping Systems Specialist at the West Florida Research and Education Center in Jay, Florida, working with the University of Florida, IFAS. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some common questions that I get about peanut fertility issues. The main question that I get every year is about gypsum application. So I'm going to focus the talk today on gypsum. The usual situation that I run into when I get a question or I get a call to a field is either do I need gypsum, or I've applied gypsum and then I've had a big rainfall event, and is my calcium still in the pegging zone? Do I need to reapply my gypsum? The other situation is I haven't yet applied my gypsum and it's been raining and I can't get into the field. Do I need to apply a gypsum? Am I going to get a yield response from my gypsum applications? So with that in mind, the research has shown that you should not expect a yield increase if your soil test calcium levels are 500 pounds calcium per acre, or IFAS sends the recommendations in ppm, and the ppm is 250 ppm. If you're growing seed peanut, follow the contract, okay? We have enough issues with seed quality in peanut throughout North Florida and the region that we really don't want to be shy about applying gypsum, because the calcium is key for seed quality and we don't want to reduce our seed germination percentages and have our seed vigor problems any more than we've already got. So please, if you're growing seed peanut, you are to apply gypsum according to your contract, regardless of what your soil test calcium levels show. All right. Now, if you're not growing soil test calcium, 500 pounds, 250 ppm, and a calcium to potassium ratio of 3:1 or better. If you're better than those values, then you should not expect a yield increase with a gypsum application. What does that mean for you? That means if you're going out there trying to get your gypsum out there to certain fields before a rainfall event comes and you're going to be washed out of the field for a week, you want to prioritize your gypsum applications for those fields that have less than 500 pounds of calcium and less than a 3:1 ratio of calcium to potassium. Okay, so target those fields first. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. That's where you should be spending your time on those fields with your gypsum application. Now, larger seeded peanuts require more calcium. That just makes sense. When we talk about testing for pegging zone calcium, right? If you call up your extension agent or you call me, the first thing we're all going to ask you is, what's your soil test calcium levels? What are you looking at? And you're going to tell me, well, my initial soil test values were down to 6 inches and I want a pegging zone sample. And you are 100% correct. A pegging zone sample is not a routine soil sample, okay? A routine soil sample, your contractor or somebody's going out to your field, or maybe you're doing it yourself and you're pulling a soil sample down to 6 inches, okay? A pegging zone sample is only to 3 inches. Some private labs will say 3 to 4 inches. You're in that range. You're in the pegging zone, okay? If you're going to pull a pegging zone sample, you want to pull up soil samples 3 to 4 inch depth, all right? When you submit those samples to the lab, especially if it's a private lab, you want to specify that you're requesting a pegging zone sample. Let's suppose if you're going to, now Waters is a popular lab, so I printed out their soil test form, and you will notice on their soil test form, they do not have any option for a pegging zone sample. What that means is you have to write pegging zone on the soil test form. What that means is that they're going to run it on a completely different machine, and it changes their calculations to account for the fact that you're only sampling to 3 inch depth. So in other words, they would normally multiply the value by 2 to get from ppm to pounds per acre, but they're not going to do that because you've only sampled to 3 inch depth for the pegging zone sample. So knowing how to submit your soil sample for a pegging zone sample is critical to getting a good recommendation back. All right, so keep that in mind. You need to write pegging zone sample on your soil test form if you're in Waters. Now, if you're going to Florida, if you're using the IFAS lab, there is no pegging zone sample at all. They're just going to use a routine soil sample to determine your gypsum requirements, okay? There's no option here for a pegging zone sample with IFAS. That's okay though, because what they're going to give you is they're going to give you the response, the values in ppm. So you're still going to be looking for, if you send a sample at a pegging zone root, 3 to 4 inch depth, if that sample comes back at 250 ppm or over, and your calcium to potassium ratio is 3 to 1 or higher, you should be okay on gypsum, and you should not expect a yield response to a gypsum application, okay? So there's a few caveats there that I've learned about sending soil samples in to test for pegging zone calcium. Now, for runner type peanuts, we are recommending at least 800 pounds of gypsum per acre. It doubles that if you're growing Virginia types. Remember, your larger seeded peanuts require more calcium than your smaller seeded peanuts. So your runners, 800 to 1,000 is typically where we're recommending, and then double that for your Virginia type peanuts. When is it too late to apply your gypsum? So typically we want to target a gypsum application 30 to 45 days after planting. Okay, that's when the pegs are entering the ground, starting to have increased demand on that soil calcium, and that's why we want to have our gypsum applications applied during that time. After 45 days, your chances for a response diminish, okay? I can't give you a hard and fast date. I can't say 90 days, you're not going to get it. I will tell you though, after 100 days, you're definitely too late. So if you're 100 days out and you're still considering a gypsum application, you're definitely not going to get a response. The soft spot is between 45 days to 90 days. The earlier you can get it out, the better chance you're going to have of getting a yield response, okay? I want to talk about gypsum sources. I don't get many calls on this, but I get a lot of curious questions as people are changing around their sources, and different sources of gypsum are coming available on the market. You know, we've got phosphogypsum, and there's been a lot of research that's been conducted at Auburn and at UGA and throughout the peanut growing region. And generally speaking, it doesn't matter what source you use. Gypsum, the plants aren't going to mind the calcium source. It's all highly soluble. The gypsum source does not really matter. So go ahead and use whatever is available to you. The nuances on gypsum, gypsum sources, there's some subtle differences between them. Generally speaking, your peanut doesn't mind where the gypsum source, where that gypsum came from. Oh, let's talk a little bit about potassium. Now, I don't see any potassium deficiencies out here, and I don't often see potassium deficiencies in peanut. What I do see is leafhopper damage. And the leafhopper damage will look like a V, like a chlorotic V, starting at the midrib about 2/3 of the way up on each individual leaflet, and you'll see kind of a V yellow pattern on the tip of the leaf, okay, starting about 1/3 down. That's leafhopper damage and not potassium deficiency. Potassium deficiency starts on the leaf margins, or the leaflet margins. Okay, and so if you're seeing leafhopper damage, it's probably too late to spray, and it's certainly not going to help you to put out potassium, okay? So don't confuse leafhopper damage with a potassium deficiency. Common question that I get is boron. Yes, peanut has high boron requirements. So a lot of times we'll go out and we'll go ahead and put out 1/2 pound of boron with our foliar applications, and that's exactly what I'm going to recommend to you today. So if you've got boron concerns, hollow heart showed up last year, you're getting docked for peanut seed quality issues, go ahead and feel free to put out 1/2 pound of potassium. If you feel like you need another 1/2 pound later on in the season, that's okay too. I probably wouldn't go much over 1 full pound for the full season in a foliar application. Remember, your foliar absorption is going to be a lot higher than a soil applied nutrient source. So most of that boron is going to go straight in your crop. The difference between a toxicity and a deficiency with micronutrients, particularly boron, is very narrow. So you don't want to over apply your boron. Little doses, you're going over the crop every 2 weeks anyway with a fungicide application, just microdose it. Don't go and hit it with a big application at once, okay? So be cautious with your boron applications, little by little, 1/2 pound here, 1/2 pound there, just be careful. If you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter at The Dirt Dude, or you can find me at the WFREC website. My name is Michael Mulvaney. My email address is m.mulvaney@ufl.edu, and I wish you the best of luck for the rest of this growing season.